The crystalline arena stretched across the barren moon's surface, its translucent walls pulsing with alien energy that would contain the coming battle. Representatives from 17 different species had gathered in the orbital viewing platforms. Above, their various forms of communication creating a cacophony of clicks, whistles, and telepathic static. They had come to witness what they believed would be humanity's final humiliation. The Karathi delegation sat in their designated section, their reptilian forms radiating confidence. For 3 centuries, they had dominated this sector of the galaxy through sheer military might. Their champion, Vextar, had never known defeat in over 200 combat trials across dozens of worlds. Standing 12 feet tall with obsidian scales that could deflect plasma fire and claws capable of rending starship hulls, he was the pinnacle of Karathi genetic engineering and warrior training. And his opponent? A 17-year-old human named Marcus Chen from New Angeles Colony. Marcus stood in the center of the arena looking impossibly small in his simple black jumpsuit. His dark hair was tied back in a practical ponytail, and he wore no armor save for a pair of reinforced gloves. The only weapon he carried was a curved blade that appeared almost ceremonial in its simplicity, a katana his grandfather had given him, one of the few Earth artifacts to survive the journey to the outer colonies. The Karathi ambassador, Thrakmol, leaned forward in his viewing booth, his forked tongue tasting the air with satisfaction. "This is what the humans send us?" he hissed to his aide. "A child with a primitive metal blade? Their species' arrogance will be their downfall." What none of the alien observers understood was that Marcus Chen was not just any teenager. Born on a high-gravity world where every step was a struggle, raised by parents who were former Olympic athletes, and trained in martial arts since he could walk, Marcus represented something the galaxy had never encountered: human potential, pushed to its absolute limit. The arena's energy field hummed to life, sealing the combatants inside. Vextar's roar shook the crystalline walls as he charged forward, his massive claws extended. To the alien observers, the fight appeared to be over before it began. The human was simply too small, too fragile. But Marcus had already moved. His grandfather had taught him that size was an illusion, that true strength came from understanding, leverage, timing, and the fundamental forces that governed motion. As Vextar's claws swept through the space where Marcus had been standing, the teenager was already sliding beneath the creature's massive frame, his blade singing through the air. The first cut was precise, surgical, severing the tendons in Vextar's left ankle. The Karathi warrior stumbled, confusion replacing confidence as his prey vanished from his field of vision again. "Impossible," Thrakmol whispered, his earlier smugness evaporating. "Humans don't move like that." But Marcus was already demonstrating what 3 billion years of evolution as persistence hunters had bred into human DNA. While the Karathi had engineered themselves for brute strength, humans had evolved for endurance, adaptability, and the kind of spatial intelligence that came from tracking prey across vast distances. Vextar spun with surprising speed for such a large creature, his tail whipping around to catch the human. Marcus saw it coming. His enhanced reflexes, honed by growing up under crushing gravity, allowed him to process the attack's trajectory in slow motion. He leaped, using the tail itself as a springboard to vault over the warrior's head. As he passed overhead, his blade found the gap between 2 scales on Vextar's neck. Not deep enough to kill, but sufficient to send a message. Nowhere was safe. The pattern continued for several minutes that felt like hours to the watching aliens. Vextar would attack with devastating force, his claws leaving gouges in the arena floor, his roars echoing through the crystalline dome. But Marcus flowed around each assault like water around stone, his movements economical and precise. The teenager's breathing remained steady, controlled. Where Vextar was already showing signs of fatigue, Marcus appeared to be just warming up. This was the human advantage that no alien species had fully grasped: their incredible cardiovascular efficiency, their ability to regulate body temperature through perspiration, their capacity to maintain peak performance for extended periods. "How is this possible?" demanded the Zephyrian ambassador, her translucent form shimmering with agitation. Our combat models predicted the human would last mere seconds. The answer came from Dr. Sarah Kim, the human diplomatic observer, who had remained silent until now. "You modeled us based on our average physical capabilities," she said calmly. "But you failed to account for our variability. This boy represents the extreme end of human potential, not just in physical ability, but in determination, creativity, and the willingness to adapt." In the arena below, Marcus had begun to implement the second phase of his strategy. The cuts he had been making weren't random. Each one targeted specific muscle groups, gradually limiting Vextar's range of motion. It was a technique his grandfather had called death by 1,000 cuts, though Marcus preferred to think of it as systematic disassembly. Vextar, now bleeding from dozens of precise wounds, attempted one final, desperate charge. His massive form thundered across the arena floor, claws extended for a killing blow that would have obliterated a lesser opponent. Marcus stood perfectly, still until the last possible moment, then stepped aside with minimal movement. As Vextar's momentum carried him past, the teenager's blade found its final target, the neural cluster at the base of the warrior's skull, protected by what the jaw Karathi had thought was impenetrable bone. But Marcus had studied the anatomical data. He knew that even the strongest armor had weak points, joints where flexibility required sacrifice of protection. His strike was millimeter perfect, severing the connections that controlled Vextar's motor functions without causing permanent damage. The mighty Karathi warrior collapsed, paralyzed but alive, his eyes wide with an emotion his species rarely experienced: fear. The arena fell silent except for the gentle hum of life support systems. Marcus cleaned his blade and sheathed it with the same fluid motion he had used throughout the fight, then walked calmly to the exit. He had school the next day, after all. In the viewing gallery, 17 different species sat in stunned silence, their comfortable assumptions about human limitations shattered. They had sent their strongest warrior, their pinnacle of genetic perfection and martial training. A human teenager had walked away victorious, barely breathing hard. As the diplomatic implications began to sink in, one truth became clear to every observer. Humanity was not the weak, fragmented species they had assumed. They were something far more dangerous, unpredictable, adaptable, and capable of producing individuals who could redefine the possible. The galaxy would never look at humans the same way again.